concurrently. We will begin with the public hearing for the budget, which is now open. So if there is anyone present that would like to address the board regarding the 2025 budget, welcome to come forward. Okay, I'm hearing none at this time. So I will now call the Lapeer Community School Board of Education meeting is now called to order. And we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So Dr. Novak, would you lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Novak.
Yeah.
Let's see, we will then go into our public comment. We do have a public comment this evening. A board meeting is a meeting of school district business held in public. It is not a public meeting. The board is not going to respond to those making public comment, but will direct the superintendent to follow up with the presenter. 30 minutes is set aside for public comment, so each presenter is being asked to keep their comments brief. The board does not comment in public on any student or employee and asks the presenters to be respectful of any person they comment about. So, Karen Brashenko.
Hello, I'm back because I didn't get any answers on June 4th, so I came back. I would rather be hiking or swimming tonight, but I just want to make sure that there's going to be a plan in place to clean up after the fireworks on July 11th. So generally the 13th would be cleanup, and that's a Sunday, which is good. But again, I want to hear that your properties are going to be cleaned up and looked over before there's any mowing that goes on. Because again, in the past, the trash just sat there, no one cleaned it up, and it got chopped up into dangerous small pieces and left there and all that kind of stuff. So I want to hear that. I want to hear if there's a rain plan, because some years it gets rained out, so it gets changed to another day. And that tends to be like a day of the week when it's hard for like me to go out because I have to work and that kind of thing, or my helper friends to clean up. So yeah, I just hope at some point I get an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that concludes our public comment for this evening. So we will head into our reports. So the first one up is the Personnel Committee. Mrs. McKenna, would you please share with us the Personnel Committee report?
Yes, the Personnel Committee met on June 11th, 2025 at 5 p.m. By Zoom. It was myself, April Vars, and Putnam, also attending Matt Wandry, Kim Severly, Erica Ingles, Mark Rader, and Mary Moss. 2025-2026 budget, Matt Wandry reviewed the 2025-26 budget with the committee. The final budget adoption will be added to the June 25th agenda. Superintendent contract, Kim reviewed the superintendent contract with the committee. It was the consensus of the committee to recommend full board approval. It will be added to the June 25th board agenda for full board consideration. Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources contract, Kim reviewed the Assistant Superintendent of Business updated contract. It was a consensus of the committee to recommend full board approval. It will be added to tonight's board meeting for board consideration. Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction contract, Kim reviewed the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources contract. It was a consensus of the committee to recommend full board approval for tonight's meeting. Assistant Superintendent for Business contract, Kim reviewed the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources contract. It was the consensus of the committee to recommend full board approval again at tonight's meeting. Bargaining update, Kim secretly updated the committee on the remaining 3 open contracts within our bargaining units. These contracts will all expire on June 30th, 2025. The AFSCME, which is the custodians, the LSDAA building administrators, and the Lapeer Mechanics Association. Oh, there it is. Meeting called to, then it was,
Sorry. That's okay.
meeting adjourned at 5:45.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, go to teaching, learning, and technology. Mrs. LeBar, would you please share us the committee report?
Yes, the TLT committee met on June 18th at 5 p.m. via Zoom. It was myself, Summer Putnam, and John Van Wagner. Others attending were Matt Laundrie, Kim Seiferle, Michelle Bradford, Eric Ingalls, Mark Rader, and Mary Moss. The committee discussed the 2025-26 budget. Matt Laundrie reviewed the 2025-26 budget with the committee. The final budget adoption will be added to tonight's board agenda. We adjourned at 5:31 p.m.
Any comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. LeBar. Next, we'll head into the policy committee. Dr. Novak, would you please share us the report?
Yes, we met on June 20th, via Zoom at 1 p.m. It was myself and Tim Lipka. Members absent were Craig Watson. Others attending were Matt Laundrie, Kim Seiferle, Erica Ingalls, Mark Rader, myself, Tim Lipka, and Mary Moss. Then we discussed the following. We discussed the 2025-2026 budget. Matt reviewed the 25-26 budget with the committee. The final budget adoption will be added to tonight's agenda, and the meeting adjourned at 1:15 p.m.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Novak. Finance and Operations Committee report. Dr. Novak, would you mind reading your own as well?
Sure. So again, we met on the 20th at 2 p.m. via Zoom. It was Craig Watson. Committee members attending were Craig Watson, Summer Putnam, and myself. We had nobody was absent. Others attending were Matt Laundrie, Mark Rader, Erica Ingalls, Julia Peruski from Barton Mallow, Donna Hanson, and Madeline Coy from Plant Moran, and Mary Moss. The meeting was called to order again at 2. We discussed the pre-audit meeting with Plant Moran. Donna Hanson from the district independent auditing firm Plant Moran discussed with the committee the pre-audit communication to the board. This includes the auditor's responsibilities under generally accepted accounting standards and the plan, scope, and timing of the audit. The discussion also provides the board an opportunity to communicate privately with the auditors on matters that may impact the audit. At 2:11 p.m., Matt, Erica, Mark, Mary, and Julia left the Zoom meeting so the auditors could discuss any audit concerns with board members. They returned at 2:19 p.m. for the full group to continue the meeting. They will communicate with us when they will be ready to present the audit report to the full board. We discussed bid pack number 6.1, Schickler walk-in cooler freezer. Barton Mallow recommends the following for bid package number 6.1, culvert development for concrete for an amount not to exceed $73,400, and Ainsworth Electric Incorporated for a total amount not to exceed $151,765. For a grand total amount not to exceed $225,165. It was a consensus of the committee to recommend the full board approval at tonight's board meeting. The L4029, each year the board needs to approve a resolution along with the form L4029, which specifies to the treasurers of the various townships the exact amount to levy for districts operating non-homestead village and voted debt levy. Eric explained the district will once again this year levy 18 mills for operating, and 2.65 for 2016 and 2023 voted debt. This will be added to tonight's agenda. Cash flow borrowing. Erica explained this year we will be borrowing in order to cover the overall increase in operating costs and loss of students. It was a consensus of the committee to add this cash flow borrowing resolution to the July 25th. No, tonight's meeting, right?
Yeah, should be.
Should be June, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Tonight's board agenda for the full board consideration. The meeting adjourned at 2:34 p.m.
Okay, any questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Novak. Okay, that concludes our reports for this evening, so we will head into our action items. And the first is our consent grouping, approval of minutes of June 4, 2025.
I make a motion.
Just any consent grouping items anybody wishes to be removed. Okay, hearing none.
I make a motion that the reading of the minutes be waived and consent agenda items be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay. I have a motion and a support. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. My mind said, oh, I forgot Dr. Watson, but he's not next to me tonight. Okay. So next we have the 2024-2025 final budget amendments. So this evening we have several amendments to get through. So the first is the 24-25 general fund amendments.
I'll make a motion that the 2024-2025 general fund amendment be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Livka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. Next, 24-25 food service fund amendments.
Make a motion that the 24-25 food service fund amendment be approved as presented.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Livka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. Okay, next we have the 24-25 student activity fund amendments.
I make a motion that the 2024-2025 student activity fund amendments be approved as presented.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Livka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. Next, we have 2013 limited tax, school building and site bonds, debit retirement fund amendments.
I make a motion that the 2024-2025, 2013 limited tax school building and site bonds debt retirement fund amendments be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lesko?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. Okay, we have 24-25, 2014 limited tax, school building and site bond debt retirement.
I'll make a motion that the 2014 limited tax school building and site bond debt retirement fund amendments be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and support. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Livka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. Okay, next we have the 2015 limited tax school building.
I'll make a motion that the 2024-2025, 2015 limited tax school building and site bonds debt retirement fund amendments be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Livka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. Okay, 24-25, 2016 limited tax.
I'll make a motion that the 2024 to 2016 limited tax school building and site bonds debt retirement fund amendments be approved as presented.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Livka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. And then I think the last one is 24-25, 2023 limited tax.
I'll make a motion that the 2024, 2025, 2023 limited tax school building and site bonds debt retirement fund amendments be approved as presented.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Livka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Bottom says aye. Motion carries. Okay, so at this time, the public hearing for the budget is now closed, and we will move into the motions for the adoption of the budget. So we will start with the 25-26 general fund.
I make a motion that the 2025-2026 general fund budget be adopted as presented.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Luca?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Ms. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. And we have 25-26 food service budget.
I make a motion that the 25-26 food service fund budget be adopted as presented.
Support.
Motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. 25-26 student activity fund budget.
I'll make a motion that the 2025-2026 student activity fund budget be adopted as presented.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, 25-26 2013 limited tax.
I'll make a motion that the 2025-2026 2013 limited tax school building and site bonds debt retirement fund be adopted as presented.
Support.
I have a support, a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. 25-26 2014 limited tax.
I'll make a motion 25-26 2014 limited tax school building and site bond debt retirement fund budget be adopted as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. We have the 25-26 2015 limited tax.
I make a motion that the 2025-2026 2015 limited tax school building site bonds debt retirement fund budget be adopted as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. We have the 25-26 2016 limited tax.
I'll make a motion that the 2025-2026 limited tax school building and site bonds debt retirement fund budget be adopted as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lepka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, and our last one for this is 25-26 2023 limited tax.
Make a motion that the 25-26 2023 limited tax school building and site bond debt retirement fund amendments be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. This is Mr. Van Wagner,
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna,
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar,
Aye.
Mr. Lepka,
Aye.
Dr. Novak.
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, next is the cash flow borrowing resolution.
I'll make a motion that the cash flow borrowing resolution be approved as presented.
Support.
I have motion and support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner,
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna,
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar,
Aye.
Mr. Lepka,
Aye.
Dr. Novak.
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, next for 6.1 Schiffler walk-in cooler freezer.
I make a motion that Culver Development be awarded an amount not to exceed $73,400 for concrete, and Ainsworth Electric Incorporated be awarded an amount not to exceed $151,765 for kitchen equipment for a total not to exceed $225,165.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Then we have the resolution approving 2025 tax levy and Form L-4029.
Make a motion that the 2025 tax levy resolution and Form L-4029 be approved as presented.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, probationary teacher resolution.
I make a motion that the probationary teacher resolution be approved as presented.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Next, we have, closed session.
I'll make a motion that the board move to closed session to discuss the superintendent, assistant superintendent contracts and mechanics LMA master agreement, in agreement with the open meeting act.
Support.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. McKenna?
Aye.
Mrs. LeBar?
Aye.
Mr. Lipka?
Aye.
Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. We now go into closed session.